The federal government's new green paper on the National Food Plan optimistically predicts that Australia can feed 60 million people and become the food bowl of Asia. But when it comes to seafood, we are far from self-sufficient and rely on imports for 72% of consumption. Across Australia, the race is now on to develop new aquaculture industries to overturn that trend. And in WA, one of the nation's more remote marine environments offers some huge potential.
They're the tiny coral atolls off the mid-west coast in WA that were home to Australia's first European settlement. But long after the murder and mayhem of the Batavia shipwreck in 1629, the Abrolhos Islands have been all about fishing. Crayfish have been king here for 50 years, and the families who catch them make 22 of the islands home for a few months a year. But that's all changing now with the lobster industry in decline, and the archipelago's future may now be more about aquaculture. And at Geraldton, they've been trialling a sea cage industry which could reshape the future of the Abrolhos Islands.
We had a theory that these fish would grow to a certain level in a certain period of time at a certain stocking density. So it was a case of putting the fish in the water and seeing what happens and seeing if those theories are valid or not, and what other external factors impact them and what changes you need to do to modify your practices. One of the key things we've learned is that these fish are suited to growing in this water temperature in this area, and they have potential for some pretty good growth rates.
In fact, the growth rates for these yellowtail kingfish have been outstanding. On average, they've reached their 3-kilogram market weight in just over a year, much sooner than fish grown in the cooler Southern Ocean. Just a few hundred metres offshore at Geraldton, this 1,500 cubic metre sea cage has been used to prove up what could be one of Australia's biggest aquaculture enterprises.
There's huge potential in terms of, if you look at some of the recent reports, they've estimated the potential up and down the west coast at somewhere between $800 and $1 billion. In terms of in the Midwest here, it's probably half of that.
After 2 years of successful trials by the Marine Fish Farmers Association, a business plan is now being prepared to scale up and develop a commercial kingfish farm at the Abrolhos Islands, 70 kilometres off the mainland coast.
So to go to the Abrolhos, we actually need to be comfortable that we can get these fish to a certain size by a certain time. We need to be comfortable that the risks, like you say, biosecurity can be managed, that the feed is right, and just the operating environment out there is right, that the gear is right. It's a very sensitive environment, the Abrolhos, and you have to make sure that everything is going to be done properly when we go out there.
The Abrolhos Islands have been the lifeblood of the West Australian rock lobster industry for 50 years. But since it became a quota fishery 2 years ago, the human footprint on the islands has halved. Now the state government is fast-tracking a strategic environmental assessment to develop a range of new aquaculture ventures at the islands.
The attraction of the Abrolhos is the cleanliness of the water and the quality of the water, and we've got to be able to help the industry expand while ensuring that the pristine environment that they're looking for is maintained, and that we don't get any threats through introductions of things that may threaten the aquaculture. So the planning we'll be doing is about trying to define what can be done here whilst protecting what is here, and also catering for all the other things that are happening out here that people value in terms of the lifestyle and the tourism.
In the last few years, the Abrolhos lobster fishery has dropped from 110 boats to just 44. And fishers like Andrew Basile now work sporadically as they chase the best market price rather than the biggest catch.
We've gone essentially from a fishery where we were conditioned to go to work every single day no matter what. Now we have an allotted catch. It's, I suppose, a lot more casual. We've got time on our hands over at the Abrolhos Islands now, and also we've got all this existing infrastructure, boats, vessels, everything else that's not being fully utilised anymore. So having another string to our bow while we're over here has worked in quite well.
With his wife Tracy and 3 young children, he's growing coral for the aquarium market. The family has a research and development licence to harvest 100 kilograms of coral a year for broodstock.
We can't bring anything in from another source. Pretty well anything that occurs naturally at the Abrolhos Islands we can grow. We're picking corals, obviously have a lot of colour, grow well and are hardy to start with. We've had to spend a lot of time researching, developing different pieces and equipment that will actually work in the area. And at the moment it's looking pretty good. We've pretty well got a technique done well. We're getting good survival rates off our grafts, and the stuff's staying together in the water for the allotted time, and our growth rates are very good.
As you can see, it's really windy here today. Too windy, in fact, for us to get out onto Andrew Basile's coral farm. We're on the edge of the continental shelf. It's wild open ocean, and days like this are quite common. The weather is just one of the challenges for developing aquaculture out here.
Our lease site's situated in reasonably shallow water, but there's a very strong current flow, which is great for growing coral. Our coral's growing in about a quarter of the time at the moment that we had expected it to, but it poses a lot of problems for diving. We can have up to a 5 or 6 knot current there some days, and it makes it too dangerous, so we really have to pick our days and choose our days well and spend them well, where we can actually get onto the site and do our work and wait for the next batch of clear weather to come through.
The Abrolhos has an established pearling industry. After a chance discovery of black-lipped pearl shell here in 1992, there are now 7 commercial leaseholders. The clean, temperate waters of the prevailing Lewin Current have provided an ideal environment for pearl culture. And now the industry has expanded into Aquaculture pearl production. It's the world's most popular pearl species, and after just 2 commercial harvests, the results have been stunning.
11.3.
That's 11.3. It could be the biggest Aquaculture pearl ever produced.
Well, it's the biggest one in Australia, I'd say.
Murray Davidson says the signs are promising that Abrolhos-grown Aquariums may be the world's biggest. Pearls between 9 and 10 millimetres in diameter are considered extremely rare and valuable, and this year's harvest has consistently produced pearls in that range and larger.
It's just getting more exciting every year, especially like after we just seeded more of our shell from the hatchery. You know, technicians that are seed all over the world are rapt to see them. And that, to me, it says it itself. You know, as long as we look after them on the farm, everything goes well out in the ocean, it should be good in 2 years' time.
Pia Boschetti runs the other main pearl lease on the islands. She first experimented with Aquariums in 2005, and although they occur naturally at the Abrolhos in vast numbers, she was unable to grow pearls in 80% of the shells seeded. With the help of a Fisheries Research and Development Corporation study, she's now developed conditioning techniques which have turned those results around.
Initially, I never ever did any conditioning, and then the effects of that were the pearls that I used to get often weren't covered and weren't round, and a lot of empty shells as well. So since we've been doing this process, which is how the Japanese do it, and listening to their advice, we've really increased the quality of the product. More pearls retain the bead, and we also get more sellable pearls.
She says the island's 7 leaseholders have been working together, sharing information to try to improve their production and develop an Abrolhos brand. And with the establishment of its own hatchery, the Abrolhos pearl industry is now producing the sort of volumes needed to become a serious player in the pearl market. The hatchery is part of Murray Davidson's lease, but he'll produce about 5 million shells this year for the entire Abrolhos industry. all bred from local waters.
The hatchery's at the island, so that's one good thing about it. Pristine water to get them straight out of the hatchery straight to the farms, where you're not flying them anywhere. As well as we've got our own destiny with these, because we select breed, and hopefully eventually we'll go into DNA testing family lines. Oh, geez, I can't even explain how good it is to be able to throw shell away, so you're giving the perfect shell to the technicians. Anything that doesn't look half decent, where before we'd save something that was even 5 years old to try to give the technicians to try to make some money out of it. Well, now, if it doesn't make the grade, it's gone.
Landline viewers may recall Murray Davidson and Pia Boschetti featured in our report 9 years ago on the fledgling pearl industry at the Abrolhos. Today they're still running separate businesses, but they've taken their collaboration to a personal level.
Oh yes, well I married the opposition pearl farmer and we've also had a child. So we actually got married in the church here and that was where I was baptised, and also we baptised our baby here. Yes, it was always my dream if I had a child that she would be given the opportunity to grow up out here.
Happily married, but running separate businesses and still living on separate islands.
We've got a really good understanding. She rings me up about 5 o'clock, and if I'm cooking something nice, she'll come over, and vice versa. So it's a pretty good understanding. But she'll come over to my place and make a mess there, and then she comes back home.
The hope now is that as baby Olive grows up at the Abrolhos, so too will its aquaculture industries.
It's no longer a crayfishing lifestyle community. It is a community that's highly passionate about their world, but we are now seeing them looking at all those alternative business opportunities in terms of aquaculture, in terms of tourism, and the door's open for others to come to the Abrolhos.